It was a scorcher of a cloudless day in mid-July, the kind of heat that keeps most kids out of trouble because they'd rather sit in the air-conditioned comfort of their homes than the heat of the street. Unfortunately, some can't help but brave the sun for a chance to jump headfirst into waters where they don't belong. As I stepped onto the hot black pavement of the high school parking lot, I saw two familiar faces, looking particularly guilty and afraid as they verbally fumbled their way through an interaction with a city police officer whose squad car was still running beside them. As I approached the three of them, I determined that I had definitely seen these two young men before. "Excuse me, officer," I offered politely, announcing myself as I approached. "I don't mean to intrude, but perhaps I can help. My name's Mr. Gray. I taught these boys English last year. They haven't been causing any trouble, have they?" I gave a confident smile to the officer and a knowing grin to the boys. The officer smirked at me and looked back at the two of them before speaking to them instead of me. "Well, guys, why don't you tell your teacher what you've been up to today?" Both teenagers looked at each other a bit confused and embarrassed before they began a reluctant confession. I folded my arms across my chest, prepared for their side of the story. We were walking through the neighborhood, and we didn't mean to do it, but we were kind of throwing rocks around, and we hit someone's dog." The second kid blurted out with elaboration. "It was an accident, for real. We were just throwing them around. We didn't mean to hit it." The officer interjected now, speaking to me instead of them. Multiple reports were called in of two young men matching their descriptions, throwing rocks at dogs and a few windows. I'm still waiting for an explanation on how it was an accident if it happened at more than one place. They may have to explain it to the judge instead. The officer glared back at the boys impatiently. The friendly expression he gave me had completely melted away at this point. "Neither of you were ever particularly good at lying, boys." I attempted to break the rising tension with a light-hearted chuckle. "I don't know that you spending time in juvenile detention is going to be particularly helpful to anyone. More importantly, do you realize you've wasted this officer's time? He could be preventing or responding to crimes that threaten you, your friends, and your family, and instead of being part of the solution, you've chosen to be part of the problem. Don't you think you're better than this?" The officer seemed compelled by my line of reasoning, and while they responded to more authoritarian style with reluctance, they responded to mine with honest shame. "We're real sorry. We'd take it back if we could, and we won't do it again," one of them offered weakly, realizing there wasn't a leg to stand on between the two of them. I gave him the sternest teacher look I could muster before turning my attention to the cop. "Officer, I'm really sorry these boys wasted your time today, but I think we can let you get back to your more important work. I know it's summertime, but maybe education is the way to go from here. I'm thinking I can take these boys inside the school and call their parents. Then we can take a walk back through the neighborhood and let them apologize face to face with every dog owner they pissed off today. I'm a teacher in summer, after all. I have more time than you do. Of course, if you prefer to take them yourself, I'll be on my way." The officer looked stunned at my more complex and involved proposal. He was ready to just write the two minors a citation and be done with them, but seemed genuinely impressed with my request. "You know, Mr. Gray, it's a good thing you came along. I think these two might learn a better lesson with you." He turned sternly to the jumpy teenagers and reassured them. "Just make sure I don't have to deal with you two again, or it won't be pretty, understand?" Both nodded without uttering another word and stood like statues as the officer disappeared into the air-conditioned comfort of his parked Charger. I smiled proudly to myself as the boys didn't say a word until the officer's car was out of sight. Then they looked at each other before looking right at me. "Was he your teacher?" asked one. The other shook his head and spoke to me. "Thanks, mister, but who the hell are you?" My hand slid into my hip pocket and extracted a large folding knife. It clicked into the open position with a flick of my wrist as my expression hardened from behind my sunglasses and my voice answered through the scowl. "I'm a man whose dog you killed with a rock half an hour ago."